You're not man enough to provide for me.
Those words cracked across the small cafe like a whip, loud enough that every head in the room turned to look. Amara was standing now, her chest rising and falling, her finger pointed at the man sitting quietly across from her. Daniel did not raise his voice. He did not even flinch. He simply reached into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and slid it gently across the table until it stopped in front of her. On the screen was a number. His real bank balance. Untouched. Full. Billions. The color drained from Amara's face in front of everyone watching. Because the man she had just humiliated for being broke had never been broke at all. Everything that had happened over the past 3 weeks, the bankruptcy, the eviction, the scandal splashed across the news, had been a test. And in that quiet cafe, in front of strangers, she had just failed it completely. But to understand how they got here, we have to go back. Back 3 weeks, to the moment a good man first began to suspect that the woman he was about to marry did not love him. She loved what he could give her. And he was about to find out exactly how far she would go to prove it. 3 weeks earlier, life looked very different for Daniel Osei. He was 34 years old, and in just 3 days, he was going to marry the woman of his dreams. He had built his company from almost nothing, starting with a single delivery van and a stubborn refusal to give up. Now his name opened doors that stayed closed to most people. From the outside, his life looked complete. But quietly, in his own heart, something had begun to feel wrong. It started small. A comment here. A look there. Amara's mother often found a way to bring money into every conversation. How much the wedding would cost. How much the honeymoon would cost. Which properties Daniel owned, and which ones would soon carry Amara's name as well. At first, Daniel told himself this was simply excitement. Mothers get excited about weddings. That felt normal enough. But slowly, Amara herself began asking questions that felt different. Not, "Do you love me?" but, "Is the penthouse in both our names?" Not, "Are we ready for this?" but, "What happens to the company if something ever goes wrong?" Daniel had heard those same kinds of questions before, many years ago, directed at his own father, about a woman his father had loved deeply. And when the money became harder to find, so did her love. Daniel had watched his father grow smaller and sadder over the years, and somewhere along the way, he had quietly promised himself that he would never let that happen to him. So 3 days before his wedding, Daniel made a decision that would change everything. He picked up his phone and called the one person in the world he trusted without question, his oldest friend, Kwame. "I need your help," Daniel said gently. "And I need you to trust me, even before I explain." Kwame was quiet for a moment. "Whatever this is, Daniel, I already don't like the sound of it." "I'm going to disappear," Daniel said softly. "Not really. But to everyone else, to Amara, to her family, to the whole city, it needs to look like I've lost everything." There was a long, heavy silence. "You want to fake going broke," Kwame finally said. 3 days before your wedding." "I need to know the truth," Daniel said. "I need to know, once and for all, if she is marrying me, or if she is marrying what I can give her. If you've ever wondered whether someone in your life loved you, or simply loved what you could offer them, take a moment and share that in the comments. Because what Daniel was about to discover would answer that very question, in the most painful way imaginable. The next morning, Daniel met Amara for breakfast, at their favorite cafe, the very same place where he had first told her he loved her, 2 years before. She was glowing that morning, flipping happily through a folder full of wedding details, talking about flowers and seating charts. Daniel watched her for a long moment before he finally spoke. "Amara," he said softly, "there's something I need to tell you." She looked up, still smiling. "What is it?" "There's been a serious problem," he said, "with the company. It's big." She laughed gently, the kind of easy laugh that comes from someone who has never truly had to worry about anything. "You're being dramatic," she said. "You always find a way to fix these things. This one might be different," Daniel said quietly. "I might lose everything." Her laugh faded, just slightly. She reached across the table and patted his hand, almost absent-mindedly, before turning back to her folder, back to the flowers and the seating charts, as though he had told her nothing more serious than a small change in the weather. Daniel smiled along with her. But somewhere deep inside, something quietly cracked. Her laugh had not reached her eyes. And in that entire conversation, she had not asked him a single question about what kind of trouble he was really facing. That night, with a heavy heart, Kwame set the plan into motion. Carefully staged documents. A quiet leak to a business journalist. Frozen accounts that were not truly frozen at all, only hidden behind a wall that only Kwame and Daniel could see through. By morning, the story would be everywhere. And it was. By noon the next day, the headlines were already spreading. Osei Logistics under investigation. The founder's assets frozen. Fraud allegations shaking the company to its core. Daniel's phone would not stop ringing. But the first call did not come from Amara. It came from her mother. "Daniel, what is happening?" Mrs. Boating's voice was sharp, almost accusing. "Is this true? Are you really losing everything?" "It looks that way," Daniel said carefully. There was a pause on the line, a pause that told Daniel everything he needed to know before she even spoke again. "And the wedding?" she said. "What happens to the wedding now?" "Not. Are you all right?" "Not. How can we help you through this?" "Only the wedding." Something in Daniel's chest went quietly cold. If Mrs. Boating's reaction feels difficult to hear, wait until you see how Amara reacts when she learns the truth for herself. Stay close, because this story is only just beginning to unfold. 2 hours later, Amara arrived at Daniel's penthouse, still his, though the movers Kwame had arranged were already there, carrying furniture out into a waiting truck as part of the plan. Amara stood in the hallway in her heels, watching strangers carry away the life she had once planned to marry into. Neighbors peeked out from behind their doors. Someone quietly took out a phone to record. Amara's face burned with embarrassment. "Daniel," she whispered sharply, pulling him aside. "People are watching. Do you understand what this looks like?" "I understand what it is," Daniel said softly. "I'm losing my business, Amara. I might be losing everything I've worked for." She glanced around at the watching neighbors again, lowering her voice even further. "Okay, but what does this mean for us? For the wedding? My mother has already paid deposits. People are already flying in for this." Daniel studied her face for a long, quiet moment. Not once had she asked if he was okay. Not once had she reached for his hand. "I don't know yet," he said simply. Amara sighed, glancing at her watch. "I have a dress fitting in 20 minutes. We'll talk tonight." And she turned and walked away, her heels echoing against the marble floor, leaving Daniel standing quietly in the middle of his own staged collapse. Kwame walked over and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Are you all right?" Daniel let out a slow breath. "I think I already have my answer," he said softly. "But I need to see exactly how far this goes." That evening, Daniel packed a small bag and moved into a modest rented room in his old neighborhood, the same streets where he had grown up, long before the money, long before the company, long before any of it. The building was simple. The walls were thin. The stairwell carried the warm smell of cooking oil and old paint. It was nothing at all like the penthouse he had left behind. He told himself this was necessary, part of the plan. But quietly, some part of him also wanted to feel, even briefly, what it meant to be nobody again. Amara did not come with him. "It isn't safe there," she told him over the phone. "I'll stay with my mother until this is sorted out." Not safe. As though the very streets that had raised him, shaped him, made him who he was, were something to be avoided rather than understood. Daniel did not argue. He only said, "Okay," and gently hung up the phone. That first night in the small room, Daniel sat on a thin mattress, staring up at a cracked ceiling, wondering quietly if he had made a terrible mistake. Not the plan itself, but the years he had spent building a life with someone who could walk away so easily the moment things became difficult. There was a soft knock at his door. A woman stood in the hallway, holding a covered plate of food. She looked to be about his age, dressed simply, her hands showing years of quiet, honest work. "You're new here," she said warmly. "I saw you moving in earlier. I made too much rice tonight. I thought you might be hungry." Daniel blinked, caught off guard by such a simple, unasked for kindness. "That's really kind of you. You didn't have to do that." She shrugged gently. "Around here, we look out for one another. I'm Efua." "Daniel," he said. She smiled and placed the warm plate in his hands. "Welcome to the building, Daniel." And then she turned and walked back down the hallway, without asking him a single question about who he was, what he did for a living, or how much money he had. Daniel sat back down slowly, the warm plate resting in his hands, and for the first time in days something in his chest gently loosened. Something tells us this small act of kindness is about to mean far more than Daniel realizes right now. Stay with us, because things are about to become far more complicated for Amara. Across the city, in the comfort of her mother's home, Amara sat curled on the sofa, scrolling quietly through her phone, avoiding calls from wedding vendors asking about deposits she could no longer confirm. Her mother sat across from her, arms folded, her expression unreadable. "You need to think very carefully about this, Amara," Mrs. Boateng said. "A man without money is a man without options. Without stability. Mom, he's still Daniel. Daniel with billions was a wonderful match," her mother said flatly. "Daniel with nothing is a very different conversation. He's going through something difficult," Amara said, though her voice lacked real conviction. "I should be supporting him right now." Her mother leaned forward. "There is a difference between supporting someone and quietly ruining your own future for them. You are 29 years old. You do not have the luxury of gambling your whole life on a man who might spend the next 10 years trying to rebuild what he lost." Amara said nothing. She simply looked down at her phone, at a message from an old family friend, David, a wealthy real estate developer who had once shown interest in her, long before Daniel had entered her life. Her mother noticed where her eyes had drifted, and smiled faintly. "David has always liked you," she said gently. "It wouldn't hurt to have dinner with him. Just as old friends. Just to keep your options open." Amara hesitated only a moment before she quietly typed back a reply. Meanwhile, across the city, Daniel spent his days walking the same streets he once ran through as a boy, reconnecting with faces he had not seen in years. Efua checked on him often, sharing simple meals, asking nothing in return. She had no idea who he truly was. To her, he was simply a man who had fallen on hard times, and to her, that alone was reason enough to be kind. One evening, as they sat together on the rooftop, watching the sun slowly sink behind the city skyline, Efua quietly handed him a small envelope. "What's this?" Daniel asked. "It isn't much," she said, a little shy. "But I saw you counting coins for bus fare yesterday. I want you to have this. Until you find work." Daniel opened the envelope. Inside was a small amount of money that clearly represented real sacrifice for someone like Efua, money she likely needed for her own bills, her own life. He tried gently to hand it back. "Efua, I can't take this from you." "You can and you will," she said firmly. "That's how things work here. When someone falls, we catch them. No questions asked?" Daniel stared down at the small envelope in his hands, and for a long moment, he could not find any words at all. This woman, who had almost nothing, was quietly offering him everything she had. And the woman he had promised to marry, who had access to more wealth than she could ever spend in a lifetime, had not once truly asked how he was doing. If this moment is touching you the way it touched us, take a second to like this video, because the story is about to take a much heavier turn. 2 days later, Kwame arrived at Daniel's small room, his expression tense, holding out his phone. "You need to see this." Daniel took the phone, and felt his stomach quietly drop. Photographs. Amara, dressed beautifully, laughing softly across a candlelit table from David. Not a quick coffee between old friends. A warm, intimate dinner, her hand resting gently near his on the table, her smile open and easy in a way Daniel had not seen directed toward him in weeks. "When was this taken?" Daniel asked quietly. "Last night," Kwame said gently. "There's more. Her mother has been quietly pushing her toward David for days now, telling her to keep her options open until she sees how your situation turns out." Daniel sat down slowly on the edge of the mattress, the phone still resting in his hand. He thought of Efua's small envelope, still sitting on the table by the window. He thought of Amara's face in the hallway of his penthouse, more worried about what the neighbors thought than about him. He thought of her mother's very first question, after the scandal broke, not, "Is Daniel all right?" but only, "What happens to the wedding?" "I think I finally have my answer," Daniel said softly. "Are you going to end it?" Kwame asked. Daniel looked up, his jaw set gently but firmly. "Not yet. I want her to say it herself. Out loud. In front of everyone. I want the truth to come from her own mouth, not mine." The next morning, Daniel called Amara and asked her to meet him at their cafe, the same one where the fake collapse had first begun, the same one where their story had first started 2 years earlier. Amara arrived looking tense, glancing around at the other tables as though worried about being seen with him. "Daniel, this really isn't a good time," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "There's a lot going on right now." "I know," Daniel said calmly. "I saw the photographs." Amara's face went pale. "It isn't what it looks like. David is just a friend. My mother suggested dinner, that's all, just to keep your options open," Daniel said gently, finishing her sentence. "I know. I heard everything." Amara opened her mouth to argue, but something in Daniel's calm, steady gaze quietly stopped her. "I need you to be honest with me," Daniel said softly. "If I never got my money back, if I truly lost everything for good, would you still choose to marry me?" The silence between them stretched long and heavy. Amara's eyes darted nervously around the cafe, and when she finally spoke, her voice cracked with something close to panic. "Daniel, be realistic," she said. "I can't build a life on nothing. I have plans. I have expectations. You're not man enough to provide for me, not like this, not anymore." The words landed like a slap, loud enough that nearby tables quietly turned to look. Amara did not seem to notice or care. She had said it. Out loud. In public. Exactly what Daniel had needed to hear. He reached gently into his jacket, pulled out his phone, and slid it softly across the table. Amara looked down at the screen. Her fiancé's real bank balance. Untouched. Full. Billions. Her face drained of every trace of color. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I was never broke," Daniel said quietly. "None of it was real. The investigation, the frozen accounts, the eviction, all of it was a test. I needed to know if you loved me, or if you loved what I could give you." Amara's hands trembled. "Daniel, please," I panicked. "I was scared. I didn't mean any of it. I still love you." "You just told an entire cafe that I wasn't man enough for you," Daniel said softly, his voice steady and calm, which somehow made it feel even heavier. "That isn't fear talking. That's the truth." Kwame quietly stepped forward from where he had been waiting near the door, having gently captured the whole exchange, not out of cruelty, but because Daniel needed to be certain, needed proof he could return to, so he would never later doubt this moment, or try to convince himself he had imagined it. Amara looked around the cafe, slowly realizing how many people had witnessed everything. Quiet whispers were already spreading. Someone in the corner had been recording on their phone the entire time. "Daniel, please," she whispered. "Don't do this to me. Not in public." "You didn't think twice about doing it to me," he said gently. "In front of my neighbors. While you believed my whole life was falling apart." He stood slowly, buttoned his jacket, and looked at her one final time, not with anger, but with something closer to quiet sadness. "I hope you find what you're truly looking for, Amara," he said softly. "I only hope it isn't a bank account." And he walked out of the cafe, leaving her alone at the very table where their story had first begun, and where it had now, quietly, come to an end. By the next morning, the story had spread across the whole city. Someone from the cafe had posted the video online, and within hours, it seemed everyone had seen it. Old friends distanced themselves. Whispers followed Amara everywhere she went. The wedding, of course, was cancelled. The deposits were lost. The dress hung untouched in a closet neither of them would ever open again. Daniel, meanwhile, quietly returned to his real life. His company had never truly been in danger. The investigation had been staged from the very beginning, carefully arranged through Kwame's contacts, and just as quietly reversed once the truth came out. Within a week, Daniel Osei was once again one of the wealthiest men in the city, his empire fully intact. But something inside him had gently, permanently changed. He returned to the small building in his old neighborhood, not to hide this time, but to say thank you. He found Efua on the rooftop where they had once shared a quiet sunset together, and he told her everything. Who he really was. What he had truly done. And why her small envelope of money had meant more to him than anything Amara's family had ever offered. Efua listened quietly, and when he finished, she simply said, "I didn't help you because I thought you had something to offer me. I helped you because you needed it. That's all it ever was." That, Daniel realized softly, was the answer he had been searching for all along. In the months that followed, Daniel quietly launched a community fund in his old neighborhood, new housing, small business support, scholarships for young people trying to build the kind of future he once had to fight for. Efua's small building was one of the very first to be renovated, though she never once asked him to do it. He and Efua did not rush into anything. There were no cameras this time, no stage tests, no public announcements. Just two people slowly building something honest together, grounded in a kind of trust that money could never buy, and could never break. And somewhere across the city, Amara quietly watched it all unfold from a distance, replaying that afternoon in the cafe again and again in her mind, the moment she chose fear and image over love and loyalty, and quietly lost everything that truly mattered because of it. Wealth reveals character faster than poverty ever could. True love is never tested by what you can give someone. It is proven by what they are willing to stay for, even when you have nothing left to offer at all. If this story touched you, take a moment to like this video, and tell us in the comments what you would have done in Daniel's place. Subscribe for more stories just like this one, and we'll see you in the next story.